Hello, hello. You're listening to Answering the Inner Call with me, Malika Lee. It's so wonderful to be with you again, dear soul. Thank you for taking this time for us to commune and fellowship in this appointed time at this appointed place, honey. Okay, so in the previous episode, please check that out if you have not listened to it. It's part of the 5 points of the 5 pointed star of being a spiritual superstar. I covered the fifth point of the star, which is on rest. And I wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive. I talk about the value of rest in, sharing stories and analogies in the previous episode. But in this one, I wanted to get a little bit personal, like I did with some of the parts of answering the inner call. I just felt called to speak to this. So I shared about how this of the 5 points are that this fifth one, rest and surrender, is probably the one that I find the most challenging at this particular time. And I've made a lot of progress in this area, like I alluded to before. But I think if I was to take a deeper dive on this whole thing about rest and surrender, I think underneath that element also is related to value. And when I say value, often in this Western world, we evaluate and evaluate people based on what they do, right? Like, oh, what do you do? As if what they do gives us a bearing on who they are. And sometimes it gives us an insight into an aspect, right? Like if a person is a lawyer, that gives us an insight into some of the things that they may think are interesting or what their training is. And like I said, I was a former or recovering workaholic and also an achiever. I entangled my value, worthiness, etc., related to what I was doing. So then if I was resting, I felt bad or as if I was no longer worthy, right? And so I say this to say that the value of rest is also related to our value being connected to who we are versus what we do. Now, the benefit of your value being connected to who you are, and that's why spirituality for me was such a lifeline and continues to just nourish and water and bless my soul, is that if my value is connected to who I am as a child of God, who I am as an expression of the divine, who I am as an expression of divine, unlimited potential, of loving, of peace, of joy, is constant because it's who I am, then that value based on who I am is the same whether I'm sleeping. It's the same whether I'm giving a presentation. It's the same whether I've made $100,000. It's the same whether I've given $10 away or given $100,000 away or made $300,000. Or do you see what I'm saying? That when your value is based on who you are, then the fluctuations that come from doing and having, because life is a constant change. One thing that's guaranteed in this earthly world reality is that things are going to change. One day you might be on top, the very next day you're at the bottom. One day you might have made all this great success, the next day no one remembers your name. We see this in fame and celebrity, where one day you're hot, the next day you're not. If you place your value on those circumstances of what you've done, how much you have, when that goes away, if it goes away, then you think your value has gone with it. Whereas when your value of yourself, now we can't control how other people see you, right? Or how other people see us. But when you are at home with yourself and know that you are valuable regardless of the type of shoes you have on or the kind of car that you drive, I think that it's easier to rest. Because then it's not like we're not always doing to prove anything and to prove our worth and value. So I'm curious to hear what you all think about that, because I know that in the past, and still working through unplugging some of this, that, my value as I interpreted it as a child was like doing good, being good in school. And I think a lot of us get that messaging. And this is just a reminder to kind of balance that out a little bit. If you have an issue with doing all the time and you have an issue with being still and resting, I just, invite you to look at that and see if there's any of the themes that I've talked about here entangled with that. And if there are, then it's an opportunity to work through that. This goes down now to the healing and the heart work, to work through some of those things, to be able to remember and remind yourself of your intrinsic value that's unchanging and unwavering. And I value you just being with me today, just listening, tuning in. It is so valuable to me. Your presence is so valuable to me. Your attention and time is so valuable to me. And you don't have to do anything else. Yes, I might ask you to subscribe. Yes, I might ask you to comment if that speaks to you. But just know your presence as it is right here, right now, is incredibly valuable. And I thank you for that. So I'm going to sign off with that for now. And maybe with this shorter episode, this will give you a few minutes to just be still and to rest. Ha! And I think I'm going to do another episode on rest after this, coming up on some things that came up for me when I finally sat down somewhere and was still, because that can also be uncomfortable. So with that, thank you so much for listening. God bless you. I love you. If your heart is feeling full and you feel called to share this with someone, to like, comment, and subscribe, please do that. But know that you are valuable and appreciated, whether you do any of that or none of that. All right, cheers until the next time. Much love. Peace.